You know, part of being a comedian is you do a lot of road work. You do a lot of road work. And I am a comedian, and my friend Nick Sperduti, he is a comedian as well. And so we're out there on the open road cracking jokes all the time. We like to travel together because it can get kind of lonely. So we vagabond together. And most recently, we went to the Fembot Homeworld, which I loved.
I mean, first of all, I don't even think that's proper anymore. I don't even think we can say Fembot.
Yeah, well, okay. Real quick, I'm just going to... This is something Nick and I were arguing about the whole way back. You're supposed to call them replicants. You're supposed to call them replicants, but you know who doesn't say that? Fembots. The whole time I was there, I never heard a Fembot ask me to call her a replicant. They said Fembots, I said Fembot. The only people saying replicant are uptight white people on the way to or from the Fembot homeworld. Yeah, I had a great time. The comedy was okay. The comedy was okay. I didn't. They weren't. They were. It was a polite audience. They laughed okay, but it felt kind of perfunctory. Like it felt like they knew when to laugh, but they didn't actually get the humor.
Listen, as far as the comedy goes, they were laughing, but it was as if they've watched an episode of The Big Bang Theory. Yeah. And it was just them going by such a routine to laugh. Like it was very hard to listen to.
That was okay. There was that one point about halfway through my bit, my routine, where a woman on the third row yelled, "Is that a joke?" And I said yes, and then she just started uproariously laughing.
Yeah.
And it was like, on the one hand, I appreciate the confirmation of it. I'm glad that but it did feel kind of contrived. But Tinder was fantastic. I hit up Tinder every time I go to a new planet. And
well, it's not that difficult when you're every person that you swipe right on is already starting a conversation with you.
They were great, and they weren't even. There was just no beating around the bush. It was just like you're acceptably attractive. Come over to my apartment for sexual maintenance. And I was like, I don't know what sexual maintenance is, but I'm down. And
yes, you do. You
I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what it was. And this is just a pretty fun trip, really. Here's the thing I like about the Fembots, okay? And they get a lot of crap because they're conniving and trying to take over humanity. And I acknowledge that. But also a lot of humans do that too. You got to acknowledge that. Like there have been plenty of humans that have tried to take over humanity, and then the Fembots do it, and they're
not as bad when they're on their own planet, at least. No. Then it's like, well, you don't really have much to worry about because they've already have their planet, right?
Yeah, and then the other thing too is that do you know who I didn't have to have conversations about feelings with? The 4 Fembots I dated.
Oh my God.
There was none of that. There was no talking about feelings.
What about when the bus driver exploded?
Yeah, no one talked about that. He blew up, and they were like, well, we should go on another bus. And I was like, these are very self-directed, rational people that I can hang out with. Like, they're not... I went on a date with a Fembot while I was there. You know what she didn't make me do? Go apple picking. That was not a part of that. This is the lowest pressure, lowest maintenance group of people I've ever met.
Well, I will say that the FICF is always a fun place to be at, and it's very enjoyable. Personally, I had a good time. I really felt like I had some of my best material, and Heaton, I'm always happy to be there with you, buddy.
I wanted to ask you something.
Sure thing.
You hated the Fembot Homeworld the first couple of days we were there. You clearly did not like it.
No, I don't remember that. I don't think so.
No, I'm looking at a text message, and it says, I hate this place. I hate the replicant homeworld, which kudos to you there, Nick, for using the proper terminology.
Well, it is the proper, yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, you hated it. But then the Fembots, kind of, I don't know if they invited you to something or what, but you disappeared for 2 days, and you came back, and your whole attitude had changed. Like, you seemed calmer and more rational. Are you a replicant that they replaced my friend with? Are you Nick or a replicant?
Heaton.
Good old Nick, always being jolly when I ask him questions.
I think that it was just a great time, and of course I'm not a replicant. That would be crazy, okay? First of all, wouldn't you be able to tell if I was a replicant? You and me, we go back years. wouldn't you be able to tell if I was not me? I'm me. I mean, of course I'm me. Who else would I be? I'm Nick. I'm always Nick. I'll always be Nick. I love you, Heaton, my good old buddy.
You do say that a lot. Yeah, you do say I'm Nick, I'll always be Nick a lot. Okay, all right, there was this one weird moment, though, where when we got back from the Fembot Homeworld, I invited you over to see my magnet collection, and you flipped out. When I handed you a magnet, you flipped out. And you've always liked my magnet collection.
Well, sometimes you just have to be responsible with those sort of things. You know, you got to keep them where they're supposed to be. And maybe it's just not generally a good idea to just keep them out in the open like that. You know, maybe you could lose them or they could get bent or broken. And, you know, you don't want that, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Because then what good is a collection if it's bent and broken and bad, you know?
Okay, I guess you make a good point about my magnet collection. I'll be more careful with that in the future. It just seemed odd at the time because you reacted as if it would actually physically damage you. Also, you've been reading binary, like books in binary, because I saw you'll just sit in front of a computer and you're just reading these scrolling ones and zeros. And I'm like, that's cool that you learned a new language. I support that. Like, I tried learning Spanish on Duolingo last year, and I got kind of tuckered out. But in your
That's
case,
exactly where I learned binary. You can learn it on there, Duolingo. And here's the thing: when you go to another planet, you want to be respectful and learn their language. So I did. So you did mention that whole bit about me going to a room for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening, I don't think I actually told you the story, but what ended up happening, so Trisha, if you remember Trisha.
Oh, yeah, I remember Trisha.
Trisha brought me to the Capitol, and she showed me around. I told her I was getting a tour that day, and what ended up happening was I accidentally stumbled upon some stuff that they don't really like to talk about. And so they just detained me for a couple of minutes just to talk, but they were very polite about it. They fed me and everything. And the food over there, wonderful, by the way.
Yeah.
Could not have loved it more. And what happened was they said, hey, you're a really great, funny comedian. And so is Heaton.
They did?
Your good old buddy. And I said, yeah, they did. And I said, yes, he is great. As am I. Thank you. And then they gave me some gifts. They also gave me this special patch that helped me to learn binary faster. And then they sent me on my way.
Well, you know what I do appreciate, Nick? You were considerate enough to send me text messages so that I wouldn't worry, because being your traveling companion, if you disappeared for 48 hours without calling me, I would have been really worried. But you sent me, okay, here's a text message you sent me at 11 p.m. It says, hello, it is me, your human friend Nick. And I'm like, well, that checks out. Glad to know that Nick's okay. And then it said, don't worry, I'm staying with some Fembot friends, still human. And then it just says insert emoji, which is, okay, makes sense. I can kind of pick whichever emoji I want. And you had several like that where they're all said, I'm fine and I'm very human. And I'm like, well, those are the two things that I'm most concerned about. So good to know.
Yeah. Well, classic me. I'll tell you what, I'm just, that's just, it's me. I'm human, and I'm Nick, and it's me. Who else could it be? It's Nick. It's me, Well,
that is ironclad, pro-human Nick material right there. So that's all I need, buddy. If you say you're human, that's enough for me.
I think that it should be.
Well, good. Anyway, I guess that's it. We'll travel to another planet in the future, and I'll be more careful with my magnet collection.
I'll see you next time, Heaton, my good old buddy.
That's the show we